عليه وسلم وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم. Um, I wanted us to, so Bismillah, um, I wanted to speak about interpersonal relationships and where that is placed within Islam. So there are many different emphasis points within Islam. Um, like there's an emphasis point on belief that we have true belief and we have sincere belief, and that is one aspect, our iman in Allah Ta'ala. And then there's an emphasis point on ibadah, our worship, our relationship to Allah Ta'ala, our prayer, our Quran, our dhikr, our dua. And then there's another emphasis point on our interpersonal relationships and our character with other people, our character with Allah Ta'ala, how we carry ourselves. And to truly appreciate Islam is to learn and to enact and to strive to embody all of these different aspects. And I think many of the challenges we have within Islam is that we don't often we don't often appreciate the holism and the vastness of the Islamic legacy, and we reduce it to a few of the aspects while ignoring many of the other aspects. And there are many aspects to our faith because it is so holistic, it is so encompassing. And I think part of these nasihas is to speak about the different aspects of our of that big picture. And so let's start with this hadith, very beautiful hadith, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, hadith comes in Tirmidhi, it's a Hasan hadith. It is narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم المسلم أخو المسلم. المسلم, the Muslim, the one who submits to Allah Ta'ala. And al-Muslim was actually the mubtada there, and the akhu is the khabar. The Muslim is akhul Muslim. The Muslim is the brother to another Muslim. And akhu here would encompass obviously males and females, like a brotherhood and sisterhood. Al-Muslimu akhul Muslim. The Muslim is the brother to another Muslim. So within that few three words, al-Muslimu akhul Muslim, it sets up a relationship between every single believer. That every single believer is a brother and sister to every other single believer, and effectively, believers are all actually family members. And that is the closeness that is the close knit nature of the Muslim community. And for example, if you had to travel and you end up at some international airport in Qatar or Dubai, and you go to pray at the masajid or the musallas at the airport, you would see faces from all around the world coming to pray. And when you all come to pray together, there's a special bond, even though you have never met and you will probably never meet again. But in those moments, there's a special bond when you say Assalamu alaikum, and there's a special connection between every believer. And I think the spirit of connection between every single believer in a world of increasing disconnectedness and increasing loneliness, this idea that we are a brotherhood and a sisterhood and a family, this is a very valuable and precious aspect. And it's incumbent upon all of us to carry on this legacy of Islam, that when I meet someone and I say Assalamu alaikum, I share a faith with them. I share a love for Allah with them. I share a love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with them. I format my lives as they would like to format their lives. And there's a much in common with regard to each other. So I think this universal family, this universal brotherhood and sisterhood that we have with each other, it's something that we have to give life to. not something just we have to merely express in words and in khutbas. It's something that we have to manifest in every meeting between a believer to a another believer. So that is the attitude we have to have, is that it's an attitude of family. Then the Prophet ﷺ says, لا يخونه ولا يكذبه. لا يخونه, khiyana. A Muslim does not cheat or does not trick another believer or defraud another believer. ولا يكذبه. A Muslim does not lie to another believer. ولا يخذله. And a Muslim does not deceive another believer. And obviously it's not that if it's not a believer we can do these aspects, but there's a special bond between believers, and that bond is a bond of honesty and transparency and truth and respect. And these characters here are not the characters of a believer to deceive and to lie and to defraud and to cheat another believer. We are all going to be accountable for our actions. The Prophet ﷺ continues, he says, Kullu muslimi, every believer, al muslimi, upon another believer is haramun. There are certain things that are forbidden between believers. So which things are forbidden between believers? Irduhu, ird is someone's honor, someone's dignity. It is forbidden for a believer to overstep and to impale and to harm the dignity and honor of a fellow believer. وَمَالُهُ, the private wealth of each of individuals, it is impermissible, it is haramun for a believer to delve unjustly into the wealth of another believer. وَدَمُهُ, and the next believer's blood, it is unlawful for that person to shed another believer's blood. And this is, and haram is a beautiful word, because the haram, we come from the word haram in Makkah. Like the haram in Makkah is a place which is sanctified. It is sacred, because things are sacred because the area or the space or that arena cannot be tainted. For example, when you start salah, you make takbiratul ihram, the takbir of I'm going to ihram, which means now I cannot speak, I cannot eat, I'm in a state of prayer. When you done your ihram, or from the word haram, you have certain rules which you have to follow, and you can't do many things because you're in a sanctified state. And similarly, when you meet your fellow believer, that's a sanctified, a sacred relationship. And there are things that you cannot do to that believer. You cannot lie to them, you cannot cheat them, you cannot deceive them, you cannot impale their honor, you cannot delve into their wealth and seize their wealth unjustly. You cannot shed their blood and harm them. There's a very sacred bond between believers. And in a world where our interactions are abstracted, which means many of the interactions, even this very interaction now, it's an abstracted interaction, because I'm not seeing, we're not communicating in person. We're communicating via devices. And when the communication becomes abstracted, people become more nasty. People show the worst sides of themselves. It's almost like road rage. When someone gets behind the wheel, uh, they act in a way that they would never act if they were walking or running. So now the same thing is that when we interact in person, there's a certain amount of interaction, but when it's on WhatsApp or on Facebook or on some social media accounts, there's a different type of interaction. And one simply has to read the comment section of any of this of any controversial issue to see how people are not upholding the spirit. It is not the spirit to impale someone's honor. It's not permissible. It's haramun to hurt someone's honor, someone's dignity, to deceive someone. And I think we have to be very careful about these relationships that we have. And especially when it comes to WhatsApp and social media, because people are just so much worse when it's abstracted. And it has such profound and significant harm when we start passing on these messages that harm someone else. So we have to be very, very circumspect and very careful about about the interaction. Then the Prophet ﷺ says, "At-taqwa hahuna." At-taqwa, that to be conscious of Allah Ta'ala hahuna, and it points to his heart. It is here. It is something which is inside of you. It's an inner compass that you have, and that inner compass affects your relationship towards people. Because if taqwa is here, automatically your relationship towards people is beautiful, whether that interaction is in person or whether that interaction is via a message. Automatically it's beautiful. Because at-taqwa hahuna. بِحَسْبِ امْرِئٍ مِنَ الشَّرِّ. The Prophet then continues and says, it is sufficient, it is bad enough, it is enough evil to do what? أَيَّحْتَقِرَ أَخَاهُ الْمُسْلِمِ. That someone just belittles and just speaks down to a fellow Muslim who is his brother or sister. That even not the big things, not even like the huge insults and the lies and the backpacking, just to belittle someone is sufficient evil. So I am concerned often with our with the state of the ummah on these social platforms, and it's sad to see, and it's not the way a believer carries themselves. And many of the things that we engage on social media platforms are not also relevant to us. And really, a part of Islamic teaching is a big part is that if something is not relevant to you, and that something is unconfirmed, unfounded, um, and that something is going to impale someone's honor and dignity, there's no way someone can pass that on. There's no way you can pass something on like that if that is the case. If it's something which you just get the message and you think, oh, I got the message, I'm passing it on. But if it impales someone's honor and you don't know whether it's true and you have no business in this and there's no public good in this, then there's no way that someone can forward those things. So my appeal to our students at Mizan and by to the general public is to is to is to really to protect each other's honor and protect each other's dignity, um, and then inshallah we build a true community. I'll end off with a very short hadith which you all know, which is such a beautiful hadith. The Prophet ﷺ says, "Al mu'minu lil mu'mini kal bunyan." We are like a building, we're like a structure. We are together. And if you think about the wall, everything is interlocked, everything depends on each other. يَشُدُّ بَعْضُهُ بَعْضًا. Some of it supports the other. And to harm a fellow believer is actually to harm ourselves. To hurt the dignity and honor of a fellow believer is to hurt the dignity and honor of ourselves as believers. And it's a very silly thing to do. That's a very silly thing that you do want to hurt your own honor and dignity in this world and the next by harming someone else's honor and dignity. So I think these are important, and especially in the age of forwards and sent as received and these things, is that people's honor and people's dignity is paramount. And may Allah bless us to have prophetic akhlaq, prophetic character. And if you want to have prophetic character, we actually have to read more about the prophetic character. And sharing this hadith here about what the Prophet's words are, these are actually these are the standards of character. The standards of character is not what's happening in our social environment at the moment. The standard of character is that which is expressed by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that which is exemplified by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is the standard of character. And the more we read and the more we learn about his words and his actions and his states, the more we understand what the bar is for prophetic character and what we have to live up to. So may Allah open those doors to us, and those are the most beautiful doors you can open. When you open those doors, there's a light and a fragrance that enters into one's being. As soon as you just enter and you just hear something or read something about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's like a light, like a door that's opening and the light streaming in and the fragrance is entering into our heart, and such a beautiful moment. And then to live that and to exemplify his example, that then is us maintaining some of that light and some of that nur within our beings. So may Allah allow us to emulate whatever we can and whatever we are able to achieve of prophetic character, and make us really people of beauty. And beauty, and one word for beauty in Arabic is ihsan. Ihsan, and it's the highest level of Islam. The highest level of Islam is ihsan, that you conduct yourself so acutely that it's as if Allah is always within your gaze. That this great being Allah is always within my gaze, and because I'm so aware of this being, that I have the most beautiful character in public and in private. And if we do these very basic, and these might not, sometimes we want to speak about, like, I don't know, intellectual things, or or complex things. It's often the very, very basic elements that are going to help us the most. The very, very basic elements that if we give life to it, it will help us the most. And so let's put these basics in place, and let's start today, inshallah, and continue from today with the protection of each other's dignity and honor. And just when you meet someone, even if you meet someone on a chat, or you're making a comment on someone's post, in a sense, you are engaging with a member of your family. You're engaging with a brother or a sister. And even if you have to disagree with them, you disagree with them with the utmost decorum and respect. And the best is obviously not to enter into in any argumentation that has no benefit. So may Allah bless us, may Allah guide us and protect us all. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.